Hey folks, what's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and the match I showed you yesterday where we played sub-commanders was all players in the Americas because we were having a little bit of trouble connecting the two continents yesterday via the Steam servers, and I think the EU folks were having a pretty tough time with the Steam servers as well, but they managed to get a game on, and this is their 4v4. I wanted to get this on here. Yeah, so we had a bunch of people join in when I put out the call to play some games, which is great. And if you want to be a part of that, we've got a link to the Discord in the description. Please feel free to join us. It's a great community to play some Total War. And honestly, people in there play some other games too, and they'll get together. Like, I know I've seen people playing like Mordhau and people talking about Bannerlord and all kinds of stuff. It's not just for Total War. They're gamers in there, right? You can come join in. Anyway, let's check it out and see what we got today. As far as the matchup goes from the EU, they did not play as strict like a sub-commanders type thing like the other match that you saw yesterday. There is some specializing in these factions, but it wasn't quite as, like strictly sub-commander type thing as we did in our match. So what they've got, though, is the dwarves led by Thorgrim Grudgebearer. I love it. If you're a dwarf player and you're gutsy enough to go with Thorgrim, gotta love that. Anyway, we've got a couple of organ guns. They're being protected by some warriors and then some quarrelers behind that. And you'll notice that the unit size settings, they had to crank it down a little again because they were struggling with some server connection issues. And then there are some dwarf warriors over here guarding a cannon, and yeah, so more artillery power for the dwarves using that dwarf geometry. Remember, it's not camping, it's dwarf defensive geometry, folks. Get it straight. Don't accuse the dwarves of camping because that is a grudging. There are two gyro bombers supporting them too, so the dwarves come in heavy with the memes here, along with Thorgrim and the gyro bombers. So there's some Royal Pegasus Knights here for Bretonnia supporting King Lewin, who is up in the air. He's basically just got a line of peasants for infantry. There is one foot squire, and then the, well, two technically, because you have the Beast Slayers of Bastogne, which is another foot squire, this time carrying pole arms, and they are supported by a damsel Lore of Life, who's got regrowth and earth blood, along with her Power Stone ability to improve the recharge rate. Now, as far as other allies, they do have the Wood Elves. Wood Elves are going to be led by a Glady, because why not? Glady is a really fun lord for the Wood Elves, and so that's what they did. And they are bringing a heavy range component. Oh, I forgot part of Bretonnia's army. We'll get to them. We'll get to them. But yeah, the Wood Elves are playing a ranged role here, as one would expect. They do have a Spellsinger Lore of Life as well, carrying basically the same tools as the Bretonnian Damsel. We've got some Deepwood Scouts here with Swift Shiver Shards. Woo, that's a mouthful. And then some Hawkeyes of Drakira, which is a special Waywatcher unit, which, remember, has this hawkish precision thing, meaning that they do extra damage when nothing's within 70 meters. So really cool unit. Very expensive, very risky, but if it gets the right targets, it can do tremendous damage. There's some Eternal Guard and Wild Riders over here, as well as some more Eternal Guard, ready to back up the Dawi allies. I know, pointy ears backing up beards. It just feels wrong, but you know what? That's what happens in crazy big battles. We've got some Questing Knights, as well as the Companion of Kinnell, and then we've got the Knights Errant out here as well, so that's the remainder of the cavalry support force that Bretonnia brings, because clearly Bretonnia is playing that role. And then infantry-wise, mostly it's made up of Avalorn here, and they have a good number of White Lions. And then kind of an infantry unit, but also kind of ranged here, is the Lothern Sea Guard. It's a cool pick. Remember, these are spear-armed archers that double as pretty competent in melee, and especially decent against large units that aren't armored. And then there's some Sisters of Avalorn here too, which actually do kind of double over as a melee unit after they expend their ammo. So, not entirely an infantry thing here, but somewhat loreful to that, and is pretty cool. And then they are led by a High Elf Princess, who again is kind of an odd hybrid of melee and archery. So be a cool thing to see there. But as far as other units for Avalorn, they have a Mage Lore of Light with Banishment, a Net, and I believe it's going to be Foz Protection. Yeah, Foz Protection's a good one. So the ability to add some extra defense and stuff to units. Anyway, so that's going to be the home team, I guess I should say here, because they submitted the replay. And as for the away team, it's going to consist of starting with the Dark Elves here, and they are led by none other than Morathi. And Morathi is the best Dark Elf Lord. Sorry, for those of you who like Malus, Malekith, Crone Hellebron, or Lokir, Marathi is the best. Can you tell I'm biased? Yeah, a little. Anyway, so you know who Air thinks is the best Dark Elf Lord. As far as infantry goes, there's a number of Dread Spears, at least 4 here. You can see 3 on the front, 1 in the back. There's going to be a Sister of Slaughter, and so the Dark Elves bringing a significant infantry component, and they are going to be supported by a Chill of Sontar, Blackguard, and the Blades of the Blood Queen, which is a special Hargoneth Executioner, which does have the Guardian ability. So it should be really cool to see what those guys end up bringing to the battle. Very powerful infantry. There's also a Shade with Great Sword. Now, as far as more of a range support, we've got Count Nocti here, and he is going to be the Vampire Coast range support here. And I love Noctilus on foot. He's a little bit slow, not as cool looking as the Necrofex, but he is kind of a beast, and it makes him pretty hard to destroy. An interesting pick here. There's going to be a couple of carronades supported by a Gunnery Wight, protected by Zombie Pirate Deckhand Mob with pole arms. There's a few of those units, and then there's even more artillery over here with more Gunnery Wight. So, I mean, you can't have enough Gunnery Wights in this situation, so it's going to be more carronades. So the Vampire Coast, despite having a few infantry units, definitely playing the ranged role here, especially with Lamprey's Revenge back here. So really cool stuff there for the Vampire Coast. Very competent range component. There are a couple of deck gunners up front as well. Now Chaos also playing more of an infantry role here. And you can see that they've got some warriors with great weapons, aspiring champions, just kind of all mixed across a long line here and supported by a Chaos Lord on foot. And I do believe that they have a Fire Sorcerer here. Yeah, they have a Fire Sorcerer. And then as for their last remaining component, which is actually the mobile component, or the cavalry, and that is going to be the Beastmen. And so the Beastmen are going to be led by Kazrak the One-Eye on a chariot. I love that because he's leading kind of a mobile component here. There's a Bray Shaman, Lore of Shadows, several units of Centaurs, a couple of which have these throwing axes. So an interesting unit there, and they are combined with some Unbreakable Chaos Spawn, which is really cool. And then further up, there are more Centaurs, a couple of which are the standard type with just... really, standard Centaurs are good against low armor. They have a nice charge. And then you've got Centaurs with great weapons, which can melt through a lot more armor, albeit they're a little bit squishy after getting a good charge in. So here's the Centaurs with great weapons, including the Sons of Goros, which kind of look like a cross between a dairy cow and a centaur, I guess. It's very interesting. But they're a lot more capable magical attack variety. And again, they come with Guardian, so pretty cool unit if they get to protect Kazrak for any extended period of time. I did forget to call out the Sun Dragon here for Avalorn. It is there. Let's see how this one plays out. Should be a pretty interesting battle. From a range standpoint, I would actually expect that Coast is going to own this. They have a significant force of carronades supported by Gunnery Wights. So yeah, I don't really know how the home team here, so to speak, would be able to overcome that much artillery. We'll see whether or not they are able to. This significant ranged force here is massing on the left of the home team. And you can see the Royal Pegasus Knights and Lewin kind of moving out here to match this movement from the Beastmen. The Beastmen do not have a lot of hitting power to really crunch through that flank, but if they're patient, they can play their cards right and potentially cause a lot of damage. And you can see, despite having what I think is a fairly significant artillery advantage, there's going to be an all-out charge here by the away team, and it's a bit of a risky move, honestly. They have so much range. I mean, they don't have the foot range, but they do have the artillery range, and I'm surprised they're not spending a little more time pushing that. Look at this, the Mage, Lore of Life, has already been mostly shredded, I guess, by artillery fire somehow. And you can see now that here comes the charge. The Chill of Sontar gets way out ahead here. When you're coming into these types of fights, you want to bring these units in last. That's a bit of advice I would give people in a 4v4. I make this mistake myself from time to time. Don't bring in these expensive units early and let them absorb all this fire. Hold them a little later, and kind of think about how you want to engage them. Marathi is going to drop a Pit of Shades on the skirmishers and the artillery component, looking to do her damage there. But Marathi is on foot. She's going to be relatively immobile here, and she is kind of casting that stuff from a safe distance back here, as she should be, because the Elven supremacy of range back here is very significant. You're going to see that the Dark Elves do pile in, start fighting these Dwarf Warriors, but they don't have units over here that can break through them terribly quick. They managed to do a lot of damage to Thorgrim, and now you can see Morathi wanting to move in, but she is under some heavy artillery fire. And this is a good choice, I think, by the home team in trying to get Morathi out of here. In fact, she's going to get utterly melted by some elves back here. And Burning Head here, a little bit off target, or Avalorn was able to move out of the way. It does a little damage, nothing too significant. Chaos has engaged Avalorn and Bertonia all along this line, and they should do pretty good. And you can see Beastmen actually decided to avoid this fight with Bertonia, which is good. They didn't need to get into that fight. It would have gone very poorly for them over there. So I like the fact that they're moving around, looking for a better engagement. Some extra shades with great swords over there that I missed. These ones are getting wrecked. The Chill of Sontar came back. Morathi died in an attempt to retreat. But Thorgrim's forces over here are pretty hard pressed. And look at this. Count Noctilus is trying to go for the kill on the Light Mage, but the Light Mage manages to live with 177 hit points left. Ooh, look at this. The Everqueen's Court Guard here gets caught by a pit of shades. That's going to be brutal. That one will have come from the Brace Shaman from the Beastmen, and look how the Beastmen kind of reversed course, came back across the middle, and charged into a squishier part of the line for the home team. So nice play by the Beastmen. One of the challenges, though, is they're left back here to face Lewin and the rest of his forces, which is a little bit problematic, but I love that they took some of their forces and broke through in the middle to cause the damage where it desperately needs to be caused. But Kazarak's getting hit by the Sword of Quaron. He's in a pretty difficult fight here. The Chaos Spawn are helping the tank, and there's some scurvy dogs to help too. In the meanwhile, you've had the Carronades and other stuff being able to own from range, and they have helped in the fight against Bertonia and some of these other forces. You can see Avalorn having to use their dragon here to intervene. But look at this beautiful banishment from the Light Mage that wasn't killed by Noctilus, and it ends up crushing a big section of the away team's forces here, and what I would say was actually a pretty successful assault at the moment, which was definitely causing some big issues. So that was a clutch banishment from this Light Mage who just barely managed to survive the ordeal. The Hawkeyes of Drakira have been kept safe, and they are firing away at the Blades of the Blood Queen and other expensive units, being used very, very well right now. The Carronades have had to move up a little, look for different targets. The Dark Elf forces over here have been pretty successful, albeit slow, in breaking through Thorgrim's forces, but there are now Wild Riders over here that are going to be able to support. Thorgrim is still alive, and he's got Eternal Guard support now too, which will be quite helpful for him. And look at this. What was looking like a successful assault in the middle of the line here was suddenly stalled by that banishment. Quite suddenly stalled, to be precise. And you can see the engagement out here between Bertonia and the Beastmen. Although Bertonia lost a fair number of units, they had a fair number survive. And you can see the Brace Shaman here going after the Beast Slayers of Baston, a very nice target. So the Brace Shaman or Noctilus one. Actually, that one may have been Noctilus. I want to say... Actually, I don't think Noctilus can do that spell. Was it the Brace Shaman? I just don't have eyes on the Brace Shaman at the moment. Yeah, he's out here. It was probably the Brace Shaman. Anyway, you can see Bertonia now trying to pressure the coast range units, and they have done so successfully. The Carronades were wiped out, so the failure of the Beastmen to really hold the forces of Bertonia has allowed for the range component to be destroyed, and you can now see Count Noctilus over here fighting the Beast Slayers, and he's being targeted by the Everqueen's Court Guards and some more Sisters of Avalorn. Lamprey's Revenge, it gets netted over here by the Prey of Anathema to save its archers. And look at this, with just the support of a few Wild Hunters and Thorgrim, gets together with his allies and shuts down that Dark Elf assault. Again, very nice play there because it had been very successful up to that point. So I think this is a cool battle in the sense that you had a couple of very successful assaults going, and a few key actions and units were able to help turn back some of it. And honestly, I thought it was looking kind of grim for the home team there for a little bit, and now it's looking quite good. And look at this, Noctilus just gets caught up in a big ball of a fight here. It's not ideal for him. And now he's having to fight a bunch of infantry, and this is where Noctilus on foot won't really shine, when he gets caught up in a bunch of infantry. We're going to see these Eternal Guard coming in. They do a little bit of armor-piercing damage. The Beast Slayers have been. There is artillery fire coming in here. And then look who comes in to tank Noctilus, of all people. Thorgrim, Meme Bearer. He may be a meme to many, but that's a grudging. And he grudges you for ever having thought that, especially me. And he comes in, and he's the one that slays the Vampire Count. The Vampirate Count, I should say. And the home team is going to end up taking this one. Like I said, it actually looked like, to me, that they were possibly going to lose this at one point. That banishment was a really clutch play. The fact that Bretonia got away and was able to silence the artillery was also a very big deal. And then I think that the last-second support there by Thorgrim and some Wild Riders to keep the left flank from collapsing under the Dark Elf assault was big. It was big, and it potentially turned this battle from what could have been a defeat, at least in my eyes. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sometimes wrong, in case you all were wondering. So let's take a look at the players here. Pertani bringing in the Wood Elves, and thank you to all these UK players. It has been weird. I've had no problem connecting all over the world for certain 4v4s. It's been difficult the last few days. May not stay that way. It could just be an issue with server traffic and all that kind of stuff going on in Steam right now anyway. But yeah, here's here's Pertani's army with the Wood Elves. He did a good job of really causing damage to some key units, Marathi, Blades of the Blood Queen, some other very expensive units, so I think well done by Pertani. Wessay here with his Bretonia. Good job getting eventually over to that artillery and ranged and helping your team out with that. Reezeroy, if I get it right here. I mean, you brought Thorgrim Grudgebear and you killed Count Noctilus with them. I mean, if that doesn't win you MVP, I don't know what wins someone MVP, and so I'm impressed that you were able to take down Noctilus with Thorgrim. Well done, sir. We commend you. Yamev with the Avalorn main infantry line kind of here. It survived for a long time against Chaos. It was kind of losing. This Mage of Light can't get MVP because Thorgrim did kill Noctilus, but if anybody else were to get MVP, it would probably be the Mage of the Light with that clutch banishment. That was a really cool play. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to bring some type of breath or vortex spell in a team battle, because inevitably there's usually some kind of blob at some point, because there's a lot of units on the battlefield, and those spells pay off big time if you get them into the right place. Thane of Torn here, who is formerly known as Reptile King, the artist formerly known as Reptile King. Anyway, he's rocking the Chaos Warriors here. He had a good push going. I actually thought he was going to succeed in pushing through, so good job, Thane. I thought that was really a cool push. He did get thwarted by the banishment, but otherwise, really nice push with the Chaos Warriors. Elizio here with the Beastmen. That Brace Shaman, man, he got some work done. And I do love how he didn't just take that fight out on the left flank of the home team, because it would have been an absolute loss immediately. I love how he circled back around, came through the middle, and again, his team almost made that break there and got things done. It was very close. Shavers here with the Dark Elves rushed in, a little bit hasty with the Chilasantar, but then his forces kind of settled in. We're getting some good work done versus Thorgrim, especially considering they had no leadership. Those Wild Lighters came in late and ended up shutting him down, but it was a cool battle there. Good job to Chavers. And then Golden Eagle bringing in the Vampy Coast here. I mean, a couple of things, you didn't get to see both of them, but Count Noctilus actually did slay the Light Mage. It was after the banishment. He almost killed that Light Mage before it, right? And think how different this battle would have been if that last 177 hit points or whatever it was hadn't been on that Light Mage, because Noctilus used his bombardment and almost killed the mage, and then did kill the mage later on. He ended up getting stuck in a ball of infantry, which kind of sucks for him, and the artillery got tore up after it broke through the Beastmen. But fun play by Golden Eagle. Nice artillery support army here for the Vampire Coast. It's very focused. Anyway, kind of a sub-commander's role here. I went ahead and called it that. Wasn't quite as focused sub-commander maybe as what we did in our battle, but it was still kind of a sub-commander battle where each faction was playing a certain role, despite the fact that they had a couple of small support units for the role that they were playing, you know, so I still thought that one was a lot of fun. And these are kind of two different ways you could play sub-commanders, right? You could do it with the unit caps on, which is probably why they ended up playing this way. They probably had unit caps on. And that would explain why they couldn't necessarily spam out all those support units just like we did. And so that's one way to play it, or you can play without the unit caps and just make a few rules, like for instance only one kind of a regiment of renown and maybe no campaign units. That's probably something we could do in the future. Y'all let me know what you think about either rule set. Be kind of curious to try it either way, but this gives you kind of two flavors of that sub-commander type battle. Hope you all enjoyed it. Heir of Carthage signing out for now, and I'll be back with some more Total War action soon.